Welcome to the podcast. We're so glad that you joined us today in this brisk and cold season.
Yes, you can see we're all like wintered up here.
We're getting bundled up. We turned on a little heater and we got our fire going. And it was 21 this morning when we woke up.
High of 33
so
today. Yeah.
You know, and if you're in a country that uses Celsius, you do the translation, but it's cold.
Yes,
okay?
It is definitely cold.
And
we have begun transforming the house little by little. This is the beginning of what, if your listeners know this time of year, I call this is the Momolympics. From Thanksgiving to New Year's it is just nonstop for mothers, working, decorating, cooking, cleaning, making costumes, getting special gifts for people, getting ideas, getting overwhelmed, making lists. Well, it's so much, but it's all wonderful and amazing.
Right. So the holidays are very different for families. Like, going from
that is the difference. That is the difference right there.
You go from being a single person or a child in a family or a single, adult or whatever.
Let's just say people without kids.
All right, without kids.
To being a person without kids to a person with kids.
And I think with kids, it makes it more wonderful. There is a lot of wonder, and we've talked about that. And we've done a whole podcast on that before. There's something very powerful and beautiful, but it's also exhausting.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's Ben Shapiro. I heard him say once that when you have kids, or maybe it was, I don't know, but when you have kids, the highs are higher and the lows are lower. It's just it just expands you as a person, because it is more work and more effort, but it is also, the greatest payback in the world of having Christmas. And when I remember people would say to you sometimes like, oh my gosh, you have 10 kids and blah, 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 whatever. And he would say something to the effect of, oh yeah, but you should see Christmas mornings are so beautiful.
It's magical. It really is.
Yeah. Kids make everything in the holidays better, I think.
And before we get fully into our topic, a couple of quick, announcements or things we want to just remind you of for our messy families out there. Again, the work we do is to serve you. So one is during this time of year, this is one of the 2 times in the year that we ask for your support. This is the biggest time of the year for us from a fundraising standpoint. Our mission, all our staff, all the plans that we try to do for the coming year is usually funded in November and December, and so every donation counts, whether you can make $100 donation, a $250 or thousands and thousands of dollars, whatever it might be, that helps fund our mission. And we have lots of great gifts that we'd like to share to help enrich your family life. So it's a win-win situation in some ways. But our work is about reaching families. It's about serving and strengthening families. And there is, I believe, no greater work in the church than to strengthen the family. And I mean,
I think you all notice, maybe you've never thought about it, but we don't have advertisements on our podcast. We don't have advertisements on our website. And we are able to do that because of the generosity of people who believe in our mission and the people who have believed in our mission. Guys, do you realize this podcast is 10 years old? We've been doing this podcast for 10 years.
This January will be our 10th.
And everything that we have done has been made possible by the generosity of people who listen and who are blessed by what we do. And we're able to keep most of what we offer on our website is free and available to everyone. And we feel so strongly about that. Like from the very beginning, even before it was our full-time ministry, we talked about, maybe we should charge, like $5 a month or go on Patreon or, whatever. And I just felt so strongly that, there's some mom out there who couldn't even afford, $5 a month. And I want to make our podcast
for somebody to
I want to make this podcast available to her and to that dad who's stressed out about finances. And so if maybe you're not in that situation, maybe you're like, yes, our finances are pretty stable at this point, and we're ready to give back. And so maybe you've been listening for a while and you've never given before. Well, we just humbly ask if you could join us and help us, because the more donations we have, the more we can expand the podcast, the more we have time and energy, and we can hire other people to help us create more courses. We're in the midst of creating more courses on demand and more guides and downloads and all of that. It takes a lot of effort on our part.
Yeah, but it really makes a big difference. Anyway, so consider becoming a monthly supporter of ours. Join the parenting team, if you will, a team of parents who say this work is important and we want more courses, we want more downloads, more resources, and we want to reach more people in the coming year. And we need that.
And like Mike said, every donation, we will send you one of our Advent books. And we have a little display right up here on our video. You can see it. But any donation at this point that you give, we will send you an free copy of our book for it's Advent and Christmas. So it's like the Epiphany House Blessing. There is prayers for the Immaculate Conception and for the Feast of the Holy Family and for the octave between Christmas and New Year's. Like there's all kinds of things in there that I know when you hear this, it's in the middle of Advent. But it's still, you can still use it for the rest of Advent and Christmas, and of course for next year.
And so when this comes out, if you're listening to it right away, it is still the time to give. There's still always more time.
Always the time to give.
Yeah. And but there also, we're switching to the second part here, is that we want to invite you to join us for the family board meeting. So one, just to consider the family board meeting, period, like doing it on your own DIY. We want to help you because we have seen the power of taking time away as a couple to really think about where is our family going and how are we going to get there? How do we move our family in the right direction in a more, becoming more of who we are meant to be, who we're called to be as a family. And we just did the family board meeting webinar. If you want to get that free download, that's still available on our website. So go to messyfamilyproject.org. You'll see the family board meeting webinar is available there. You can sign up. We'll link to it in the show. But we're doing the course. If you want us to walk with you in January
and you get
9th,
the materials, which are amazing.
You get a binder of materials to help you both keep track of future board meetings, which is really fun, but also walk through the 5 steps, the 5-step process that will really put your family on a whole new level of intentionality. We want to help walk with you on that, help you discern, help you decide, and get to a united, robust, bold plan for 2025. So sign up at messyfamilyproject.org. Okay, those were our announcements. All right, so holidays. Okay, so we are talking about the wonder of this season, and we're going to spend some time. One of the things that came up in our survey, actually there's a lot of things that came up in the survey.
And we are going to do another podcast just on the survey, but we're not ready to do that right now.
But one of the things that came up was the desire for more time for prayer. And we'll do that in a future podcast.
Yes.
And so, and we've done in the past.
Well, not just time for prayer, but like helping, growing in the life of prayer.
Yeah. Parents growing in their life of prayer.
Right.
And so we'll do that in a future podcast. And in past podcasts, we've talked about the whole Christmas season and Advent and how to prepare spiritually for that. And that is really important. And we do have other episodes that you could listen to. But one of the things that came up in our podcast, or in the survey rather, was how do we do things practically in our household?
Like home management kind of stuff.
And we thought, well, this is a season. You might already be knee deep in it, right? By this point.
That's true.
But we want to offer some practical tips and practical help for parents looking at this season, because there really is something awesome about being able to spend our time in this Advent season, Christmas, and using these two seasons as, how do we think about the holidays in general?
Okay, so I'm just going to give you the topics that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about decorating, first of all, and I don't mean like giving you, guys, you know us, we're not like going to go all Martha Stewart on you or anything, but I'm going to talk about decorating. We're going to talk about hosting others, traditions, and food. And so these are all practical things. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to start out with gifts. Of course, we're starting with gifts. I just skipped that one. And I think that these are helpful because I think that sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, many times, all the times, if we go on social media looking for ideas for things, I know, I'll speak for myself. I get overwhelmed. And unless I'm looking for if I'm just like, I was looking for ideas. I always decorate like this shelf, like above our door in a certain way. And I was just and I said to one of my daughters, I'm like, I just want to think of something new. What's something new I can do? And one of my daughters was like, just like go and just like Google it or go on Pinterest or whatever. I started looking and I was just like, I can't even do this. This is not even helpful to me because I could look for a little bit, but then it just gets overwhelming. And I think that can happen with food. I think that can happen with wrapping gifts. Hey, if you love that stuff, go for it. But if you are just like, if you start getting overwhelmed and seeing all of these things that the world says, this is what your house is supposed to look like. This is the standard. This is what you should be doing with your kids. You know what? I just really invite you to just turn away from that because the stress is not worth it. Because I'm telling you right now, what you should be doing is being present to your children and not stressed out. I was just going to say that. So, because you might get overwhelmed by looking at that. You also might just have an endless loop of more and more and more before you actually do something. And your kids are being ignored in the process, right? So the holidays, although all these, the gifts, the decorating, all these things are important. What is at the heart of this season is Jesus. Yeah. Right. The heart of this season is being with our family, being present. And so we want to talk about this in that light, like have a very Christocentric view of making things practical, as well as a family-centric view, because if we don't get first things first, then the other stuff falls apart. And maybe I'm wrong, but tell me if you agree. When we're talking about some of these things, we need to prioritize, like almost as we look at our family culture. Like in our family culture, we say that first thing is the spiritual life of the home. The second is your marriage. The third is the relationships with your kids. Fourth is the gifts, developing the gifts and then 5 is the logistics and the kind of the operating, right? And sometimes there's a little bit of all of these can maybe found in some of these traditions, right? Yes,
there is a, as you're decorating, thinking about not just, we do holiday decor that might be winter, some might be Advent, some might be more Christmas, like we have different things that have a reflection into the spiritual life. There's some things that, we do that reflect that you and I do together with the Christmas shopping, some of the gifts. Anyway, keeping all of those things in order, I think are important as we get into the very practical, because sometimes we jump right to the end and be like, okay, this is how we do it. Yeah. And I think it's important that we put everything in kind of a priority order so we don't lose track. And I think that was your point with social media too, is that we don't want to get lost in the endless loop of searching for the ideal. Like you probably get, you're a doer. And so I think you can get maybe frustrated, like, I just want to move. I want to get it done. I like dreaming about things, but then I can get lost in that world. Now, I don't really look for decorating. That's not my thing. But
I think outdoor lights you get into. And I think, Mike sometimes has some years gone like full National Lampoon. What's his name?
Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase, yes.
I almost downed the power grid one year with the lights I put on our house.
He did almost kill himself in putting up lights on our roof, which is really, really high. But he did say, I will never do that again.
Yeah. That was the last time.
Old for that.
That was the last time. But I just do the other parts, which is still fun.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that dads do get into the outdoor lights and all of that.
You're right. You're totally right.
And it's like you can I think it's great to get inspired, but when you get inspired and that brings you to get, out of your budget, or you're spending too much time. Or you're getting stressed.
Right.
Then,
Or it's undermining, again, some of those higher priorities. The point, the reason for the season, your time with family and so forth. But it is something, and I'll just say this too, as a male-female difference. I do think that in general, women bring more beauty to the world. And that's obviously the case with you, right? And just by your person, but also the way you make things, right? And I like to try, and there are many creative, artistic men. So that this isn't a hard and fast line, right? And it's not but I would prefer to do the lights or get the tree set or, whatever, right? As opposed to, ooh, look at this perfect bow. Oh no, it's off by a little bit. Oh, we're going to add this woodland creature over here or whatever. All right. But let's start with the first thing that the modern family thinks about when we think about this season
is buying gifts.
Now, yes, I'll start with the idea that giving gifts is a great and beautiful tradition. And there are some people who I have said, oh, well, I want to be more simplistic. And we'll talk about that. But I think not giving gifts does a disservice to our kids.
Because
it undermines.
And I don't know who's not giving gifts to their kids.
Well, I've heard people.
Yes, good. Keep going.
Because again, I get the intention.
But it's good to talk about the extreme because then we can define
and
things.
I appreciate that, right? Now, again, we'll talk about how to manage this, right? But not doing gifts, I think, devalues an appreciation that our kids need to have, that our Father, that heaven, that this season is about celebrating with joy.
Yeah.
Right. It is about giving gifts. It's about receiving and giving during this time. And it's not all just about, what do I get? But it's about the gift and the joy and the wonder and the beauty and kids knowing you're worthy of receiving a gift. It is something that is so powerful to see that wonder in a kid's eyes when they get something that they really long for, or something they didn't even know that they wanted, it opens up in them something like, I am loved. Mm-hmm. I was thought about.
They feel special.
I feel special, right? And so let's not devalue or
downplay the gift giving.
Because it is. I mean, we talk about it as one of the 5 love languages, right? Is gift giving. And every human person appreciates a gift. The more thoughtful the gift, the more intentional we are with that gift, probably the more meaning it has.
And I think that in some ways, a lot of times for kids, less is more, because they can get quickly overwhelmed. If your child is getting 10 gifts, on Christmas.
That's the other extreme, right?
That can be almost like it's so difficult for them to appreciate any of them, because it's kind of like when you have too many toys in your playroom, they just wind up dumping things out because they can get overwhelmed. Almost. Whereas if you have 5 very thoughtfully placed toys, it's easier for children, no matter what their age is, to really kind of dive in. And I think that that's true for Christmas morning as well. So we have gifts that are given, that we give to individual children. Of course, everybody gets, between probably 4 to 6 gifts of varying sizes. But then also we have family gifts.
Right.
We have a game or a puzzle, or sometimes it's an experience.
Right.
Like we're get a museum pass or whatever.
Or we're taking a trip together.
Yeah. Or we all went to see the Christmas Carol, musical Christmas Carol in Pittsburgh. So those are also gifts that you can give for children that are like family gifts. And so those kind of experiences, especially if you have, maybe if there are grandparents listening, if they want to give their grandchildren a gift of a membership to a children's museum or to a zoo or whatever, or give them a gift to go to a show, to go to a theater, think about those experiences.
There's
or taking them skiing. You did that once,
I love those experiences because, again, those are moments and memories, because it's like, we have to think about our gift giving during this season in a new way, and you have the extreme of no gifts to too many gifts.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got that, but then you have to, what do I want from on the other side of this? Is this part of me passing on some beautiful tradition with my kids and using it? And even though the gift may be not right then, if they're really young, that may not go over so well with them, meaning the longer the wait is harder for younger kids. Meaning,
because they don't understand time.
Right. Basically. But like if you're like, okay, hey, at your spring break, we're going to do X. It's more ideal. Like when I did the skiing trip, well, that was like a week or so later, right? That we were doing that, or even, the next week. And that is awesome. If you can do an experience where it's like, okay, now this is relationship building. This is fun. This is something that not only it builds anticipation, which I think makes an experience even more enjoyable, is when you have that anticipation of it.
And the other thing too, to keep in mind is what I've seen is that as our kids get older, when probably they're around like 10, 11, 12, they find so much joy in giving gifts and picking out gifts for their siblings as well.
Yes.
So that may be something that you would think about. So our kids buy each other gifts because they have their own money. And it's really beautiful to see them spending hard-earned money on their brothers and sisters. But I think that if you say your kids don't have their own money, but maybe just something to consider is taking one of your children, maybe the older child, and say, I'm going to have you help me pick out one gift for each of your siblings. Right. And then that could even be labeled like from them. Right. And you're going to see a lot of joy in their face when their brother or sister opens the gift that they picked out for them. You know, and so to kind of
passing on that gift giving.
Exactly. Especially if you have a child whose love language is gift giving. Oh my goodness. Tap into that, people.
Yes, use that.
It is not my gift. It's not very high on my list, but of course I've been buying gifts for kids for 29 years now. So I've gotten better, of course. And some years, oh my gosh, guys, just when everybody was at home, buying gifts for 10 children, you know, like at least a couple things for each child. So actually one thing that we did is that, and I can't believe I've never said this before, but we actually have a spreadsheet.
Well,
I don't know if you all have that or not, how other people, but I have had an Excel spreadsheet for gifts for probably the past 15 years or so.
I was talking to a couple of moms just recently, you know, on a call and we're talking about Christmas and I brought that up about just how we've had that for so long.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know why I never thought of that before.
Yeah. Yeah. So under each, so I have columns and then how much money I spent on each gift. Sorry. How much money, and then just kind of made up a formula that has a total at the bottom, and then each of those totals for each person goes to the grand total at the bottom, and then I have a column for our family gifts that we're getting for everybody. I have a column for a gift exchange that we have for each one of our families, and so I can fill that in, and I have another column next to that that's like a kind of like a budgeted amount, and then our like what was actually spent. Right. And so, and of course, it's silly to try to make it exact because sometimes as far as spending the same amount of money on every kid, because sometimes you just get a really good deal on something,
right?
You know,
and the kid's not going to know, assuming you take the price tag off, what the cost of each item is. And so what we try to do is balance out the number of gifts, as well as, hey, everyone got a big gift that was X, you know, and it cost a little bit more. It was a little bit more valuable, right? And we still look for deals. But the reason that spreadsheet is actually helpful for a number of reasons. One, we should have a budget. So if you don't have a budget for Christmas for many, many years, we actually had an account set up that was our Christmas fund. And we knew how much was in there because that was a bank account set up just for that. And it had our money set aside for the, 6 months before.
Yeah, we did. It was Christmas/vacation.
Right. So half 6 of the
months.
Year.
Yeah. So 6 months of the year we're saving for Christmas. 6 months of the year we're saving for vacation.
Which is nice to have that set aside. And again, you might have a different strategy or plan, but to have a plan that you both agree on will save both the fights, but also make it more joyful and focused on the right things.
And it's really nice to have the spreadsheet where both of you can access it. And so if dad is out and he sees something that he really wants to buy for, his son, he's like, oh, this is such a great gift. He can pull up that spreadsheet too. And he can see, oh, she already got this. And I've moved gifts around too. I buy something for one kid and you're like,
oh, shoot, we've got 5 for this kid.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this to this person. And sometimes there's joint gifts too. Like both boys want, like a gaming chair or Xbox, blah, 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 something. So then, that would be for both of them.
And what we also found to be very helpful is that one year we realized that we missed out on some gifts for one child. We got a gift, but we were like, oh my gosh, we had a lot of kids and we thought we had it covered. In our minds, we had it covered.
I know one of our kids had like 4 gifts, but they were all like smaller gifts. And I think they were like maybe like 6 or 7 years old. And oh my gosh, guys,
it
was
passed
the
right
worst.
Over their head in some ways, but
no, I think they kind of noticed. And so the next day, I actually went out to Walmart or something and just bought a whole bunch of gifts and just wrapped them up and was like, "Oh, look, I found these things for you."
Yeah. It's hard to remember it all, which is why a spreadsheet again. If you have 1 or 2 kids, it might be easy to know.
Yeah.
But the easier,
for us, it was
when you had a spreadsheet
so
that you both are collaborating on, you can add items and you're like, okay, yes, we agree. And we or assign, hey, you go get this, I'll go get these things. And so that we're doing it together. One of the things we used to do too is when I worked at the university, they gave off for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And so the 2 of us would go out. I don't know if that was the best way to celebrate Mary by buying stuff.
Sure, anyway, it is.
But it was a great way for us. We enjoyed it because sometimes, not sometimes, oftentimes when you're shopping, I mean, now we do a lot of shopping online, but
right.
In the days gone by, it actually was an event for us. We went out, right. We kind of had a date, you know, we had a nice lunch together. We went out in the morning, took a little break, finished up in the afternoon, came home, kids are back from school, and almost all the shopping was done. Remember that one store that was just a big toy store? Like that was that house down south of us. Do you remember that? It was like wooden toys and things like that. Yeah. I'll just make it. Another note, like there is something about buying beautiful toys, quality toys that will last, toys that don't just, that maybe there's no batteries involved, but they're just going to last forever. They're just, whether they're the Tonka truck, that's just for whatever, or they're this beautiful, wow, we're spending a lot of time on this. All right. So, but gifts are important, right? And, but finding the toys that aren't just filling up your room and your house with more things is important, because Alicia, you mentioned this in the beginning, but thinking about where those toys are going to go.
I was just going to say, right? So pro tip is the week before Christmas, go through your toys and either give away
your kids' toys
or the kids' toys, either give away or pack away at like half of the toys, because then when Christmas morning comes, you have a place to store the new toys that are coming. The other thing that I would always do before I would wrap the gifts, I would unpackage the toy.
Right. It's ready to go.
Oh my gosh, guys, how many mornings we're so stressed out because we're trying to like open up toys that have like all the wires and
it's
the
all
things.
wired down.
And it's just like, God, my gosh. And we'd have to, no. Don't do any of that. We'd unbox the toys, cut off all the wires and everything.
Put it back in the box.
Make the toy ready to play. Put it back in the box and
batteries,
then wrap it.
if
yes,
you can.
My gosh, put in all the batteries.
We don't do it every single time, but that's the best idea.
Yes, before you wrap the toys, unwrap them, put in all the batteries, because when you're sitting there and you have 3 kids who are saying, "Where's the batteries? I can't unwrap this." Blah 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 blah, and then
can you help me get this out?
And then like the battery covers get lost like first thing on Christmas morning. It's so stressful. Like, don't do any of that. Unwrap them. Put the batteries in, get them all so the kids can take them out of the box and they're boom, ready to play.
Or buy it with no batteries involved and then.
Oh yeah, you mean awesome. Non-battery toys, yeah. But the other thing is then it reduces the mess on Christmas morning as well.
Yeah.
If everything is already ready to be played with.
I feel like my job, one of my key jobs on Christmas morning is collecting Christmas wrapping. So have your big black trash bag ready to go. Another thing that we've done off and on is Santa. Like, are the gifts from mom and dad? Are they from Santa? And again, that's a personal decision you'll have to make. But one of the things that we have found that when they're from Santa, it takes the focus off of us.
Yeah.
And it's a little harder sometimes, when you're not always getting the thank you. But again, as we've talked about, you're not getting affirmation from your kids. You're giving it. And the joy is that they received it. They enjoy it, rather than they're like, "Oh, Mom, you did a great job on this.
Exactly.
Good job." You know?
Like it's a very, I feel like the whole idea of Santa is kind of like a humbling thing for parents. Because the kids, like you just said, the kids aren't like, "Oh, you did such a great job." And now, of course, the older kids do.
They know. They all know it now.
But, and I just want to people ask us this every year about Santa Claus. True. Okay, guys, believe me when I tell you this. Santa is not a moral issue. This is not a moral issue. So what drives me crazy, I don't care what people do about Santa, but what I care about is when they act like, well, what we do about Santa, everybody has to do this.
Right.
No, they don't. They don't. Do whatever you want to do. One of our best friends was very anti-Santa and never told her kids about Santa because it was not something that she had a good experience with growing up, so she didn't do it.
And that's great.
And that's cool.
And her kids are totally normal and
her
fine.
children are now having children. She is a grandma herself. And who cares? We always did the Santa thing.
I love Santa. I really believe it plants a great imagination, a great story in the minds of kids when they're young.
Yeah.
We did not only stories about Santa. One year I used, was it powder or flour for footprints to show that Santa came out of the chimney. But I do all those things because I believe
we always do put out cookies and the notes
and the carrots for the reindeer. And we have to make sure we eat those. And some years I would do what Tolkien would do, and I would write a letter back from Santa in the opposite hand. So writing it in my left hand, I'm right-handed, and write it in my left hand so that it was all kind of janky writing there. But that's what Tolkien used to do. So I'm going with that. That's I'm standing with that. You know, he would call it Father Christmas. Whatever. I'm American. It's Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas.
And I think that, I mean, I wouldn't say that we even now would like go overboard with Santa, but it's around everywhere. And so kids would ask about it. Yeah. So we would be like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, Santa, that's cool, you know, but it's not like it was.
And then what would we say when one of our kids says, is Santa Claus real?
You know what your answer should be? What do you think? And then you just reflect back whatever they say. And then whatever they say, you say, I think you're right.
Yeah.
If they say, I don't think he is, we go, I think you're right. If they say, I think he's real, they go, I think you're right.
and it's a simple thing. Don't make it
Again, it kind of goes back. I know we've been talking a lot about planes of development in different podcasts, but it really does go back to that.
Yes.
When they get to the point where they are realize the difference between fantasy and reality.
Is that the first plane 0 to 6? So is it in there that
it's usually around 6. It's usually like kindergarten, first grade, they start realizing Santa's not real.
And this is impossible. And you should tell your older kids not to spoil it, if you will, for the younger kids. Allow them to have their imagination, which is fine. Yeah. Anyway, that's our opinion on that, right? Is that good?
Exactly. Yes. I think that's good.
And some of this isn't gift giving, but some of the traditions wrapped up with that is the night before Christmas. I love that story. I still read it today to the kids, and they love it, you know. Book, and there's something great about having traditions like that. So figure out what's your traditions, right? And then, although this isn't here, we've probably done in other podcasts, but even just the tradition of like, how do you open up gifts? Do you have a gift that you do on Christmas Eve that you share between family, which is what we do? Do you have something where the kids, when they first come down, before they come downstairs, they have to ask us? And then we have to go turn the lights on. So it's dark house with all the Christmas lights on, all the presents are out, and we have them sing a Christmas carol as they come down, right? And they still do that now, one by one. What are those traditions to make the gift giving is part of the celebration, but not the wholeness of it?
Yeah. And so just let's talk about traditions here for a second.
All
so
right.
the reason the traditions within your home for Christmas are important is because they kind of like have pegs in kids' mind.
That's right.
They're things that they look forward to. I feel like traditions kind of help form the identity of your family, but also give your family a sense of belonging. Like, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we can expect. And I think that sometimes traditions may seem really small, or like, oh, this isn't a big deal. Why do we spend so much time doing blank? And we've had that conversation between us, and I've seen that like in my family of origin sometimes, but I've really come to believe that even those small things are really, really important. So like some of the traditions that we had, like most of our married life, when we were raising our children, we always went and got our Christmas tree with our neighbors, our good friends. We cut down a
live Christmas tree.
Yeah, we always would go to a Christmas tree farm.
Not from our neighbor's yard, but from...
We would go with them and cut down a tree. And now they have grandchildren and we have grandchildren. So now we both do it with our own kids, you know, but that's something that we did for years, and it didn't even take that long. And sometimes they came over our house afterwards and did hot chocolate. But how do you get your Christmas tree? Yeah. How do you put it up?
At what time of the year, right? You know, I'm hopefully you're not thinking about it, getting it at Halloween, right? Hopefully you're waiting till after Thanksgiving.
Right.
But for many years it was, Gaudete Sunday. It's gotten earlier and earlier because some of the little people want to get it earlier and earlier. And it's not... Well, we choose to not necessarily decorate it in full until later in the Advent season. Right.
But it's good for the two of you to decide, what are we going to do in regards to the Christmas tree, and then just do that same thing every year.
Because again, as you said, it's these pegs. When you have it and you do it, even if it's not the exact date, but if it's around that same time frame, your kids begin to anticipate it. It creates that sense of belonging. And it's also things like, do you have some movies that you watch together? Are there traditions like, in our town, we have light up night. Where the Christmas tree is lit, the Advent market is open, and there's actually fireworks, right? And that's a beautiful time for us all to get together. So we have grandkids, and it was freezing, right? But it's like
But we were all like penguins because there's like hundreds of people, and so you're just like
huddled together.
You're huddled together with all these other people. So just like real quick, like some of the other traditions that we personally have that you may think about. What do you do? How are you going to serve the poor this Christmas? Maybe it's making food to bring down to a shelter or to a food bank. Maybe your church has a giving tree where you try to incorporate. I always would try to incorporate our children, either having them help me pick out gifts for the giving tree, where the parish like finds families. And actually I noticed this year, they also included nursing home residents, which they've never done before, which is really beautiful. And so to help have the kids get those tags and then buy a gift and wrap the gift. And sometimes I even have my kids like put a note in it. Right. And I remember years buying giving tree gifts and just like crying of looking at what some of the children would ask for. Just really so beautiful. You know what the nursing home residents asked for when I took the tags today? A lot of them asked for homemade cookies. Yeah. I never would have thought about that. Homemade cookies. Yes.
How simple is that?
Yes, I'm going to do that. Of course we're going to do that. And I have all the grandkids and everybody do that.
And for many years, we would go on Christmas Day to sing at nursing homes, you know, and brought cookies and we sang. And it was just like a beautiful little tradition that we had.
And I think we should go the day after Christmas this year. It's just because then my daughter, so then Maggie could be, and we play piano or whatever. Also, one of the Protestant churches near us have a live nativity every year. So we always try to attend that. I think it's just beautiful. Like a really powerful thing. After Christmas Mass, we go to Mass on Christmas Eve. When I was growing up, my parents always went to like 7 a.m. Mass Christmas Day.
The morning.
Christmas morning. We always got up really early, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. We would go to Mass and then go out to breakfast and then come home and do the gifts. And so it was like turned into like an all day thing. We, as the Hernans, have never done that, I don't think. Maybe one or two Christmases. Yep. But we've always gone to Christmas Eve Mass.
That's right.
And then we almost always have sung at Mass.
Right, some of the members of the family.
I've either sang or there was a children's choir that I would lead, or then I would sing with friends.
That we were always having some.
Always a Hernan has sung for Christmas Mass our entire marriage.
And then after Mass, we as a family, and we'd have multiple cars at some points, right? We'd drive around and see all the houses and how they're decorated. And I love our town. Like everybody gets into the holidays, right? And they celebrate Christmas I think really well. And they have different displays. There's some more like Chevy Chase. There's some more traditional. There's some with, blow up things or whatever.
And like, why do we do that? I don't know, but we just always would drive around and look at the beautiful lights after Christmas Mass. And we just still do that now.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this already, but, just asking a question or proposing, like we do Advent angels or Secret Santas, right? And it's among the siblings or as well as us, right? Just one person that you have. And maybe for us, we exchange that on, or have in the past at least.
Yeah, we do it on
Christmas Eve.
You know what? One thing that I was thinking about this when I wrote this down is that I want to get back to having your Advent angel does special things for you throughout Advent.
Yeah, we used
so
to
it's
do that.
Not just the gift exchange part,
but there's multiple little acts of service or kindness.
Acts of service.
And there were secrets like that you still maintained your anonymity,
right?
But you did little things. You either put something in their stocking, you made their bed, you did a chore for them.
You
did
left a note,
right.
Whatever. So I think that those kinds of things are good for traditions. Okay, so now let's go to decorating. One thing that I would encourage you to do, first of all, is to decorate according to your state in life.
Right. Don't go crazy or think you have to meet some impossible standard.
Because remember, everything that you put up you're going to have to take down. So for me, at this point in my life, I've been given a lot of decorations by my aunts, by my grandma, by people who, I don't know,
that
people
we've
just
just
give
bought,
us
obviously.
stuff I've bought on clearance in January. Hey, pro tip, buy any decorations in January.
And do that little by little so that you're building it up over the years.
The reason I
right?
have so many decorations now is because I've had,
30 years
30 Christmases that I've been collecting decorations, but also I do it little by little. So we have like our winter decorations, things that we just put up that are like snow and garlands and poinsettias and Christmas balls and all of that. And then, but I don't really do like put up the Santas and all of that until after Gaudete Sunday.
Right.
So I have like things like in reserve that
right.
kind of,
we have a winter celebrations.
So
or
it's like actually
Advent and winter.
One of my kids said, Mom, it's like every time I come downstairs, the house is different. It looks different every time. Or when the grandkids come over, it looks different. It's more and more Christmassy, so don't feel like you need to do it all at once. You kind of can put your base layer down, if you will, and then just kind of add for it little by little.
Yeah, I think there is something beautiful and very liturgical about it. Again, there are those who are more strict than we might be, being like, okay, then Advent and it's purple only, and that's great. Find it there are a lot of great liturgical things.
I don't
that you
have
can
that
do.
much effort.
That's right. But we look at this as a seasonal change.
Yeah.
And then there's both a liturgical season as well as a natural season. What do you call it?
Secular season? I don't know. But then also, what happens is then after Christmas and after the Christmas season is over, then I'll take down the Nativity and the Santa and just leave up all of those winter decorations really until Lent.
Right.
And then at Lent, really Ash Wednesday is when, okay, it's all gone,
Right. Yep,
and then that also is kind of like my little bit of kind of like changing all of those decorations in our home according to where we are in that season. But one thing that you can really do that I always have tried to do is make things kid friendly, because it's just so, and I know when you have kids who are little, and then as they get older and older, you may find the things that the way you used to decorate, you're like, I can't do that anymore.
Well, what do you mean? Like kids picking up nativity animals and throwing them at each other?
Yeah.
You mean?
So I remember our first year that we had a dog. This isn't a kid thing. First year we had a dog. We had all the Christmas balls at the bottom of the tree. And we came down one morning and he had taken off, because they were styrofoam. And he had taken off all of the balls that he could reach and had broken them all up.
Strings of thread everywhere, styrofoam shoot up.
So funny.
And if you put glass ornaments on the bottom of your tree,
don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised that they're broken.
Yeah.
Right.
So we buy just some plastic balls, or just put those
and even
at the bottom.
The wagging of the tail sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
But think about that. Is it kid friendly? And then we had like a nicer nativity set that was up a little higher, and then a more play one that we're okay with kids playing with.
Because I do like having a nativity set that the children can manipulate. You know why? Because I remember as a child climbing up on my parents, because my parents would put it on top of the piano. And I remember climbing up onto the piano and moving all of the little pieces around and putting extra. And I'm sure people have sent us pictures sometimes of their nativity set, and their children come and they put their little play people
Stick
around it.
Yes, exactly. Little Duplos or, Fisher Price
it's so
people
cute.
or whatever.
And so it's good to allow your children to do that, to have a less breakable nativity set for them. I have some stuffed animals and little things I buy at the dollar store, like those little, at the Dollar Tree right now, they have these little elves, which I think are so adorable. And so I have several of those little elves that they come out at Christmas, or a wooden sleigh that comes out at Christmas. I have these little Santa nesting dolls that they only come out at Christmas, and the Christmas books, put them out on a shelf.
And we have different books for different seasons that get packed away with the decorations, the St. Patrick's Day or the Easter or the whatever, that we keep so that they're protected, right? But they're special, and they come out and right. Where did that go? And it's also that means that you're not struggling to find, where is that the night before Christmas book?
Oh my gosh, yes. But then also there's I have bought a dancing Santa, 1 year, and all of these funny things that the kids get so much joy out of. And of course then eventually they drive us crazy, because we had to tell our grandson the other day, okay, no more pressing Santa's hands.
We're done. No more dancing Santa. All right. So moving from joy and celebrating to partying.
Yes.
Okay. We love to host people, and there is a Christian virtue in hospitality.
Yes.
And this is a great time of year to host people in your home. Again, and if you have it nicely done up, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to have it all figured out, doesn't have to. But there's something wonderful about sharing that joy. One is just for your own family, right?
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's relatives that come in for visits, right?
Sure.
But opening our homes is really an important time. And again, that whole idea of hospitality, that the scripture is entertaining angels unaware, right? That we have a great gift and be able to do that. And there's that old tradition, right, of putting a candle in the window to say that you're welcome for guests, right? Isn't that what that?
Well, it's welcoming the Holy Family.
That's right.
Traveling. Who's traveling through to Bethlehem during that time. And I think that there is something really special about opening your home to other people. And I think that sometimes we can, again, with social media, we can start getting into the comparison game and feel like, I can't have people over if it's, because then I have to do blank, blank, blank. I have to do all of these, different things. And I think that if we just kind of recognize, okay, what are the essential things? Let's do the essential things and then let the other things go. So when we have Christmas party, actually, we were talking about, I think we're going to probably be having 3 different Christmas parties this year, one for our kids and, 2 others as well. But the things that you can, think about what you can do. So to make it simple. So what I would tell people is that we'll do like maybe 1 or 2 signature drinks. We do basic appetizers like cheese and cracker tray and vegetable tray, but then any of the fancy appetizers or anything, or like bringing a bottle of wine, allow your guests to do that
and tell them, hey,
have them set up.
If you'd like to bring anything, here you go. And whether you do that through an app or a website that can show what people are bringing, or you just let people know, hey, this is what I have. If you'd like to bring any other appetizer or drink, boom, done.
Yes. And because really people, because
you're opening your home, you're doing the biggest part. You're organizing it. You're willing to both clean up your house, or at least somewhat clean up your house, and just provide that space. But that's a huge part of the event. Don't feel like you have to pull out the whole spread. Some people do that, and we have done that at times, but don't stress about having that done.
Right. Because kind of keeping in mind the most important thing are the people. And it's funny, we've had our kids sometimes act as like the doorman, or like the
bouncer,
hostesses. And they would we would have a list of our guests, and our kids would greet people when they came in.
Sorry, you're not on the list.
And check off their name and hang up their coats.
And some of them really got dressed up for it, and make it enjoyable and involve your kids in that. It's great. And we did that one time where our teenagers, where we had a party and cleaned up the house and had it all ready, and we did a party, and then the teenagers did a party back to back, and it was great because everybody was like, this is going to be great. And then we kind of vacated, or, kind of went upstairs and allowed them to have that.
Because the one thing too that I think is really fun about having a party like that is to have just think about having one game. Just one game. So what we would always do, because then people can gather and talk for an hour, 45 minutes or so. Then you have a game that lasts 45 minutes or somewhere around then. And then after that, people kind of trickle out for the most part. But we would always do the gift exchange, the white elephant.
Or the sneaky Santa or whatever.
Everybody brings a gift and you wrap it up, put it under the tree. And then you pick, they have numbers. Everybody gets a number. And the first person gets to pick a gift. They open it, and then you can steal it, or they can
under the tree.
Yeah, get another one under the tree. Or you can play charades. You do Christmas charades. Everybody knows how to play charades. You can look at some of our games that we have online, or you could do one of those mystery games where everybody's a character and comes, and but it's so fun to have just one organizing event. One year we got together with our friends and we sang Christmas carols for 45 minutes.
Yeah, we just
we've done that more than once.
And one time in the neighborhood, we did, as part of our celebration, we went out to a couple of neighborhoods just to sing to the neighbors.
Yeah.
So think about what you could do, and again, think about whether it's going to be earlier in the day so kids are involved, or is this an adult only party? Whatever. But it's worth getting together. It's a good excuse, a good time of year to bring people together to host them.
Okay, I'm just want to real quick talk about food.
Do it really quick.
I'm going to do a really quick talk about food. Okay, so number 1, simplify. Okay, so use paper goods, have a few cheater meals in your back pocket in case things get crazy. really, I encourage you to have your kids each pick like a signature dish, like something, even a 10-year-old can make like dirt pudding or like cranberry juice, or maybe it's a certain cookie that they like to make. The boys too, like have them all pick something, then they can start contributing to your Christmas Eve or Christmas Day
or whatever you're doing,
dinner
right?
or foods
Special
or whatever.
Parties or otherwise.
I always try to decide menu for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day brunch, and then Christmas dinner. Try to decide that way ahead of time.
Just
and
so
then,
it's done, it's less
so
stress.
it can be done. And usually our big meal is on Christmas Eve. But then just to make the Christmas morning brunch nice, I usually do like an egg bake or quiche, or something that can be made earlier and then just be ready so I don't have to be working a lot on that morning.
And if you think about, and this applies to food, but almost everything we talked about, one, the more you plan in advance, the less rushed you're going to be.
So you start thinking about these things now.
The more that you can kind of simplify and focus in on what really matters, the better it's going to be. And three, get the kids involved. Both husband and wife, obviously being both involved in all of these items on some level. And get those kids involved, because it's going to be good for them. And when they own these traditions, again, this is part of your family culture. This is part of the traditions. All of these things really are part of that family culture. And the more that you get your kids saying, oh, I'm going to make these special cookies that I only make at Christmas, or I'm going to make dirt pudding, or I'm going to make, whatever that thing is.
I'm going to buy the giving tree gifts. I'm going to decorate the nativity set.
I'm going to help make sure the Christmas tree is watered and doesn't die, or whatever. I don't care.
Exactly.
But that giving them something to do in that decorating, in that food, in that hosting, in the gift giving, all of that, it makes them have ownership for it. So your family culture is being passed on and the work is being shared as well.
So for your couple discussion questions, really think about what are the traditions that we want to double down on. That we want to do every year, whether it's how you get your tree, whether it's how you celebrate outside the home, whether it's how you give gifts or how you celebrate Advent. Think of those few things with your spouse that you are going to make your Christmas traditions.
And think about how you're going to plan to reduce the stress and delegate work to get more involvement from the whole family to make your holidays stress-free and wonderful.
Yes, sounds great.
All right, maybe we can close with a prayer.
Go ahead.
All right, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, you are the creator of traditions and holidays. You've made us holy, set apart for you. We want to set apart these days for your honor, for our family's joy, that we might have a taste of heaven. Help us celebrate Advent and Christmas and this entire season, Lord, with great joy and expectation. And in your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.